Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. There's Christmas around me and I'm very, very happy. Okay, so figure skating. It is unbelievably amazing, graceful, and truly impressive. Like, I can't even stand on ice skates, and they're doing all of these outstanding tricks on these little blades on freaking ice. Like, I don't know how they do it. Kudos to anybody here who is watching that does figure skating or just skates. I don't know how you do it. Now, of course, there are plenty of amazing female figure skaters, and one name that might come up when you think of figure skating is Tonya Harding. She was the first American female figure skater to land a triple axel at the 1991 US Championships. But do you know who the first woman to win Olympic gold in figure skater was? That would be Herma Szabo. Let's get started. I have a reindeer pillow and Christmas around me. I am happy. Herma Szabo was born on February 22nd, 1902 in Vienna, Austria. She was basically born into a family of figure skaters. Her mother was Christa von Szabo. She was a two-time world medalist in pair figure skating, and her uncle, Eduard Engelmann Jr., was a three-time European figure skating championships winner in men's figure skating, a cyclist, and an engineer. And let me tell you how awesome of an engineer this guy is. He studied at the Vienna University of Technology, specializing in railway engineering, built the Kraftwerk Wienerbruck power station in 1910. That was the largest storage power plant in Austria-Hungary at the time, and is the oldest power plant in Lower Austria. But most awesomely, he loved skating so much that in 1909, he built the first ever artificial ice rink on land, because up until this point, skating was on a frozen lake, which you will never pay me enough to do, in the Hernals district of Vienna. Then in 1912, in the Humock district, he built at the same time the largest artificial ice rink in Europe. He kept making improvements to it throughout the next 20 years to the point that the rink covered 3,000 square meters, which is 32,292 square feet, which is a little bit bigger than Westminster Abbey. and to just give you another perspective on how amazingly big this is, the average Olympic ice rink is just 19,600 square feet. And this one is over 32,000 square feet. Why you need an ice rink that big, I don't really know. He built another one in Budapest in 1922. Oh, and this guy was also a cyclist and won championships for unicycling 3 times. He can do anything because I don't know how exactly you bike on that thing. Its proportions make my brain hurt. With all this influence around her, Herma was exposed to figure skating at a young age. She would practice with her cousins Helena and Christina Engelmann, Eduard's daughters, at his ice rink. Christine would later marry Olympic figure skater and swimmer Karl Schaefer. Jumping ahead, Herma began competing as a figure skater under many different surnames: von Szabo, 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 and Szabo. If I mispronounced any of those, I'm really sorry. From what I could find, which is very little and very frustrating, one of her first known wins was in 1922 at the 1922 World Figure Skating Championships. The single ladies competition was held in Stockholm, Sweden, and Herma won gold with an almost perfect score. Her next known competition was at the 1923 World Figure Skating Championships. Singles men and women were both held in Vienna, Herma's home turf, and this time she won not only gold, but won it with a perfect score. She would compete again that next year in the 1924 World Figure Skating Championships, where the single ladies competition was held in Oslo, Norway. She would win gold once again, but she made her biggest splash at the 1924 Olympic Games. The 1924 Winter Olympics were held in Chamonix, France. It was held in association with the 1924 Summer Olympics because, if you didn't know, the Olympics weren't always held every 2 years, rotating between summer and winter. And of course, I had to know why this was. And so, of course, I did a deep dive, and I'm going to bring it to you because this is my channel. And once again, I can talk about whatever the heck I want. So, let's go back in time. As we all at least should know, the first Olympic Games were held in ancient Greece in Olympia, Greece, to honor the Greek god Zeus. And interestingly, one of the many origins of the Olympics comes from the myth of Hercules. According to the myth, Hercules was the one who called the games Olympic and wanted it held every 4 years, and that after the completion of his famous 12 labors, he built the Olympic Stadium as an honor to his father, Zeus. The most accepted first Olympics was held in 776 BC, based on inscriptions found at Olympia that listed winners of a foot race that was held every 4 years starting in 776 BC. So it makes sense that it started in 776 BC. The first ancient games featured just 8 events: racing, jumping, discus throwing, javelin throwing, pancration, which was a type of primitive martial arts and was considered the toughest sport, a pentathlon, which is a combination of the previous 5 events, boxing, and later equestrian events like horse and chariot racing. Since the games were held in honor of Zeus, ritual sacrifices were done in honor to not only Zeus, but Pelops, a divine hero and mythical king of Olympia. It is said that a cook from the city of Elis named Corybus was the first Olympic champion. The games reached the height of its success in the 6th and 5th centuries BC, but gradually declined in popularity and importance as the Romans gained power and influence in Greece. It is thought that the games officially ended in 393 AD, when Emperor Theodosius I commanded that all pagan cults and practices be eliminated. It is also thought that the games ended when, in 426 AD, Theodosius I's successor, Theodosius II, ordered the destruction of all Olympic temples. Now, from this point on, the use of the Olympic Games title was used to describe many athletic events since the 17th century, but the first modern Olympic Games were held in Athens, Greece, at the Panathenaic Stadium on April 6, 1896, and brought 14 countries, 241 athletes, and featured 43 events. And since then, the games have gone through massive changes. It was held every 4 years all over the world, kept growing, and was rarely canceled. Even when the Nazis hosted it, it did not cancel. That and when the pandemic was going on. It should have been canceled then too, but when it comes to the Winter Olympic Games, the first 5 games held just 9 disciplines: bobsledding, curling, ice hockey, figure and speed skating, cross-country skiing, ski jumping, Nordic combined, which is a combination of cross-country and ski jumping, and military patrol, a sort of biathlon. It was held every 4 years from 1924 to 1936, but stopped in 1940 and 1944 because of World War II. But as we know, the Summer Olympics went off without a hitch. Yay! Then the games resumed in 1948. Now, it wasn't until a decision in 1986 to split the Olympics into summer and winter was decided, and that the Olympic Games themselves would be held every 2 years. The first solo Winter Olympic Games was held in 1994 in Lillehammer, Norway. So, when it comes to Herma and how awesome her accomplishment is, it was in 1924 that the very first Winter Olympics took place, making Herma one of the very first athletes to compete in the first ever Winter Olympics. These games had 16 nations and 258 athletes participating. It was held at the Stade Olympique de Chamonix, which was an equestrian stadium and held 45,000 people. The opening and closing ceremonies were held there, and all the arena events were held in the outdoor stadium, which I found out that since it was an equestrian stadium, of course it was grass, and I guess when it snowed, and in this part of the world the snow just doesn't melt and it just stays hard enough to make ice out of it. It must have been really freaking cold there. And these outfits that these Olympians are wearing do not look warm. Nope. Of the 258 athletes, only 13 were women and only competed in figure skating, singles, and pairs. Can't complain too much about there only being 13. At least there was more than 0. Funny enough, this was kind of a family event for Herma because her cousin Helena Engelmann was in the Olympics with her, but she was in pair skating. She and her partner Alfred Berger would win gold in the pair figure skating division, but she would retire that same year. Now, when I say Herma made a splash at these games, I mean a splash. She helped modernize women's figure skating by wearing a skirt that was cut above the knee. It was cut above the knee. What? Because, and this makes my brain malfunction, ladies wearing pants started becoming more common in just the 1920s. Y'all, the camera has been around longer than women wearing pants. Herma wearing a skirt above the knee allowed her more freedom with her legs. Astounding! And in my mind, in figure skating, you want all the freedom you can get from your legs. Anyway, at the games, there were 8 competitors wanting that first gold medal in the first Olympics women's singles figure skating. Adding to the hype of the event, there was a young prodigy by the name of Sonja Hennie, an 11-year-old from Norway. Though the hype around her was warranted, her lack of experience showed, and she would unfortunately finish last. But a confident, well-known Herma surprised everyone attending by not only her talent, but by wearing a short skirt, which for us now is average private school skirt length. Those at the competition were truly amazed by Herma's performance and got a clear lead over Beatrix S. Lauren, who was from the US and considered a favorite. And it really became a match race between Herma and Beatrix. Beatrix performed very impressively and gave Herma a run for her money, matching Herma's graceful pirouettes and jumps. But in the end, the judges unanimously agreed that Herma deserved to be the first ever figure skater in the first ever Winter Olympic Games to win gold. Booyah! Beatrix and Great Britain's Ethel Mucklet would win silver and bronze. Now, despite Herma making the groundbreaking finding of short skirt technology in figure skating, technically Sonja Hennie, who also became a film star, is usually credited for being the first to wear short skirts in competition, but technically, to refute that, Herma was the first one to wear a short skirt in competition, but that's just me. After the games, Herma's next competition was at the 1925 World Figure Skating Championships, held once again in Vienna, but this time Herma would compete in pairs. Her partner was Ludwig Ried, an Austrian figure skater in both singles and pairs. They would go on to win gold in 1925 and 1927, but won bronze at the 1926 World Figure Skating Championships in Berlin. Her previous wins made her the only skater to hold world titles at the same time in singles and pairs. More air horns. Her last competition was at the 1927 World Figure Skating Championships in Oslo, where she won gold in the pairs, but silver in singles. During the competition, her old rival at the Winter Olympics that got last, Sonja Henning, was the one who beat Herma at this competition. Now, this would be incredibly sweet if it wasn't due to the fact that the results are controversial. Due to the fact that the judges consisted of 3 Norwegians and 1 German and Austrian. The Norwegians put Sonja first, and the German and Austrian judges put Herma first. And of course, 3 beats 2, so Sonja won gold. That's not biased at all. It is said that after this result, that was why Herma retired, because this, in her eyes, was unfair treatment. Kind of agree with her a little bit on this one. Herma was so upset with the result and apparently with the overall sport of figure skating that she never skated competitively again. But to her credit, Sonja did offer Herma a rematch, but that was years later and Herma refused. But unfortunately, with her sudden retirement, it left her partner Ludwig without a partner, and he had to find one kind of sort of fast because that next year, the 1928 Olympic Games were happening. Luckily, he found one, but he didn't have success with her like he did with Herma. Despite her sudden and bitter departure from her career in 1982, Herma was inducted into the World Figure Skating Hall of Fame in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I live in Colorado. I've been there. It's really freaking cool. And this would be cool too, if it wasn't for the fact that that was 10 years after Sonja was inducted in 1972, which was the hall's opening year. But hey, you know what? At least she got in because of her awesomeness and the fact that she was the first woman figure skating in the first ever Olympics. But hey, you know, at least she got in there, and that's all that matters. Only took her 10 years after Sonja, who kind of screwed her over, but at least she's in there. Herma Szabo died on May 7th, 1986 in her home at the age of 84. At this point, she had moved to Rotterdam, Styria, a small town in southeastern Austria. We don't know if she was ever married, and she had no children. Okay, that concludes our first story on my first Christmas with Herstory. Watching all of the footage from the first ever Olympic Games and just the outfits and all that stuff, it's so cool to see how the first Olympics ever, and now with the Olympics coming up, which I think are going to be in Paris. And of course, it is also awesome to know who the first ever female figure skater Olympian is. If you learned something today, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And while you're down there, please leave a friendly comment. I will be back next week with another video. And until then, don't be well behaved. You just might make herstory. See you next time, guys.